talk, which will be given by Olga Scrivner, and the talk will be Modeling Organizational Structure of Scholarship of Teaching and Learning Program Application of Social Network Analysis. Okay, well, so we do see your screen, Olga, so thank you.
Oh, hold on, let me share my screen first. Well, first of all, Massimo, I was gonna thank you for putting our presentation after Elena's presentation, because it's a great transition. And Elena will be talking exactly, and we're studying exactly the network of educators, of scholarly educators, and how to connect those isolated nodes, and how to combine and how to increase the teaching innovation. And as a matter of fact, so I'm gonna actually stop my video for just presentation. I'm gonna put back, because otherwise my computer may not handle it. So let me go back to sharing screen.
Elena, just one thing. Elena, can you stop sharing your screen?
Yeah. I'm like looking for the button.
No problem. Okay, we do see your screen, Olga. Thank you. Thank you for the transition.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and thanks again, Massimo. And Elena, we definitely need to connect after that. All right, so I am actually presenting our collaborative work on scholarship of teaching and learning program, as in fact this year at IU, Indiana University, it marks the 20th anniversary of the program. So all the things that we've been discussing about teaching innovation, it's kind of part of the program. So what is actually SoTL? It's abbreviation. It's a complex multidisciplinary institutional infrastructure. Of course, there is hierarchy in it, but let's see how we can deal with it. So an infrastructure actually combines several levels. As you can imagine, we have micro-social level with administration, all the policies and bureaucracy as well. We have micro-social level with individual educators like all of us here. And we have meso-social level collaboration between educators. And this is, in my opinion, our opinion, it's the path to success actually. And as you see, our I would say the representation of outreach going to development and sustainability, it's like a circle that continues, and the key point actually in the program success, it's the sustainability. And to maintain the sustainability, we need to help those programs to develop or to create those strong network of teachers, educators, and is what Elena mentioned, community of practice with their passion and enthusiasm, like everyone in this conference. So excited to be part of it because everyone's so enthusiastic and about teaching. So the mission of the program is, of course, to maintain those cohorts, but truly what our project can contribute to help those SoTL programs, because there are several universities in US. I'm not quite sure if SoTL is, I think in Canada also SoTL, but I'm not sure if in Europe SoTL exists yet. But part of our 2-year collaborative project is to look at all the different strategies that the program offer and implement to attract new members, and also how they support sustainability of existing cohorts. Is any support there, or is any help needed? And we would like to identify, in addition to internal structures of those SoTL communities, who are the leaders and what are the weak nodes, and how they communicate, or whether there's a big dense community going on. And so we'd like to also look at their production, and by production we're talking about publication basically. In this case, of course, it can be any other production patterns or proposals, but in this case we would like to look first at co-authorship network and design a graph database for network analysis. This is another contribution to SoTL as a discipline, as no one developed a graph database yet. So, and of course we have a long-term goal to help those programs to provide suggestions, or maybe identify the priorities and type of events that they need to promote in order to connect those educators. Like here, we all 33 people, we got connected by the conference. Maybe there's type of events that need to be implemented to connect those isolates, right? And let's talk about teaching excellence and innovation, as we're all excited about it. And we notice in the last few decades, there's been really proliferation of all the institutional initiatives, not just individuals, to promote this type of excellence. And truly, what's been shown to be effective is the combination of top-down and I would say bottom-up approaches, where you combine collaborative participatory methods from individuals, with also sharing leadership among all stakeholders. So every single person, again, forget hierarchy, everyone become important leader in their own networks. All right, so if you look at organizational perspective, and so Elena also talked about, we can see ourselves in this pyramid. On the top, we have good teaching. This is our practice, like as individuals. Then we go to scholarly teaching. So we have our, again, individual practice, but now we engaged in scholarly literature. And finally, the bottom of pyramid is where all magic happens, right? It's the community of practice of our teaching and learning. So the other way to look at teaching taxonomy would be on your left side is the DART model, the dimension of activity related to teaching. So you can actually see and identify in which quadrant the scholarship of teaching and learning is positioned. So it's more public and it's systematic. So in the academy goes from private to public and informal to systematic. So in order for us to develop this community of practice, we need to kind of be engaged in some kind of public outreach with producing results that will be public, and also we need to be systematic in our approaches. So community of practice, as we all be talking about, this is more well driven by the same interest and enthusiasm. But what's interesting about SoTL community of practice, and it might be relevant to a lot of networks, they start with the passive, I would say, involvement, where the members just, especially if new faculty members, they become aware of certain events and workshops, they go to attend them, they become consumers of shared knowledge. So at this stage, of course, this stage may be transition to active involvement, where you write fundings or start publishing, create some collaboration and fellowships. And in fact, these are, we call them producers. They actually can be a main driving force for not just public dissemination, but for sustainability of this type of cohorts. So in this current stage, what we doing is we're looking at the data collected by SoTL program, which consists of several data sets, including event attendance, faculty learning communities. We also compile faculty list, and we also try and extract publication data relevant to SoTL research. And of course, we're running into a lot of challenges, and I'm going to mention a couple of weaknesses so you'll know that it's not the perfect yet. It's just the initial stage. And so we have a lot of missing data. It's hard to connect some of those data sets because they'll have timestamps, but it's hard to connect each individual, especially if some co-authors already left IU. We cannot find their username, which is our unique identifier, etc. So in our weakness, I'm just going to state it out there in front of you so you know whether to trust or not to trust our results. So we only linking members right now through their publication in co-authorship network, but we're not linking members yet in a graph database. And of course, our events that have timestamp, they're not really linked yet in chronological kind of event time. All right, so let's look first at our co-author network that we developed with Site2, and we kind of added variables depicting schools and disciplines. And you may ask me, what is this purple prolific color? But unfortunately, those co-authors that whose disciplines or schools were not identified because they kind of missing links, or they left IU, or they're collaborators that graduate students, or they're not part of IU. So this is something we have to fix and try to come up with the solution. But the second largest group is art and science. So it's kind of as expected for some reason, but and then we have a little tiny representation of social work, public health, and informatics disciplines. And if you look at this network, so a couple of things, couple of types we could define right now. And we have one small network on the top with one influencer. And I'll tell you about this influencer just in a second. Then we have a large dense network with several mid-sized nodes and strong connections, and many, many small networks, which, as Elena pointed out, it could be very important for innovation, but they're not connected yet. So we need to find those links between them first. And what's interesting about this large, a small network with a large influencer, it turned out to be, I would say, director of SoTL program in the past, and which interesting, it's like a former director, which suggests kind of a key position, influential position to create and maybe maintain the community of practice. And the large dense work represented with a couple of nodes that we identify as being consultant from Center of Teaching and Learning. And what's interesting, they connect a lot of faculty, but they're not connected among themselves. So they might be one of those good, strong links that bring faculty together, but they're not really connected to each other. So we also put our co-authorship network in display, in interactive display, which allows, well, we'll add more attributes as we go, especially publication. But the goal is in the future to help, it's more like, it's not really a recommendation system, but at least say if you're new faculty, you can look at names you know or discipline you know and try to identify future potential collaborators actually. So that's something for future development. And let's look at our Neo4j Design, which is just the first stage yet, and we already discovered some improvement that we can make in the future. So the three main questions that's still kind of in front of us. So think about, we would like to really look at the pathway transition from consumer to producer, right? And how to design this actually transition in the database. We try to encode transition also between different events, because if you look at different scales from formal to informal, so how do you make a community strong, whether you have to attend an informal event, then become a member of formal events. So those interesting things that we could get insights from if we be able to design our model, and also how to design those timestamp pathways between not just events, but also members. We have members that are at the left, we have members, just new members. So all those questions still ongoing, and this is ongoing work. And of course, any suggestions will be greatly appreciated. So far we looked at from, let's say, from statistical or exploratory analysis look, we found that there's 3 top schools identified by SoTL membership. So we have obviously College of Art and Science, which was shown also in publication work. And we also found education well represented and public health as well. And we definitely found that the most attended events are workshops, followed by reading groups and a small amount of faculty learning community. So you notice not that many members actually end up going to the more formal event that requires more commitment. All right, so if we actually look at our consumer and producer representation on the bottom right, so the way to identify whether it's producer or consumer, we design a variable that, a scale basically, that show the commitment from less commitment, going to workshop, to more commitment, for instance, publication and fellowships. Right, and what we discover actually that indeed there's 2 subgroups that exist. And what's interesting, there's only 2 people who actually went through the entire scale from going to their least formal event and going all the way through that scale to the most formal event. And also what's interesting is we noted that the fellowship, being part of the fellowship, led many members to production. So they start publishing. Of course, we can expect, you're supported by institution, you start publishing or hire graduate students, undergraduate students, but it turned to be a very good initiative to promote scholarship research. So that's something that we can suggest for the program to, promote as well. And so if truly we are still in the process of redesigning our pathways, so we don't have any timestamp again, chronology, like if you attended this event, then next you go to another event. But what we can say in our kind of very preliminary work right now, that we extending recent work on SoTL scholarship as a social network now, and we are adding Neo4j graph, which hopefully allow us to do much deeper network analysis in the future when we start adding all those member links between them. And we also use the co-author network to identify influencers for, especially for SoTL outreach. And that gave us idea actually to maybe think of a recommendation system where you, not just recommendation system, but also it's good database to search for different research in your own institution and try to identify your future collaborators based on that work. And we also, our research actually kind of supported the taxonomy we presented initially, from less commitment to more commitment. And we were able to identify this important link or key that we first did not include, and that was fellowship. And for, as I mentioned, for future direction, we would like to definitely redesign model with providing more connection. As I mentioned or wanted to mention, that we try to run even similarity patterns between different members, but we're not able to identify just by what they attended. All the events were like edges of those events, so we're not able to identify, meaning that we just need to improve our model to connect members via their publication, proposals, or event that they attended together. And we're really thinking of looking at this collaboration recommendation system. Look at, think of if you're new faculty, or even reading a chat today, I've noticed that, you know, people were saying, oh, Massimo, you need to connect with there was a couple of emails like Isma and Massimo, you need to connect with certain person. So this would be great for new faculty to identify, well, not just new faculty, but anyone with research to identify potential partners to get connected by similar research ideas or disciplines or any kind of things. And of course, network analysis would be great to understand how those community of practice actually work, so we can help SoTL to promote their work and outreach other faculties. As we mentioned, there's so many teachers who work hard, but nobody knows about their work, so need to be get connected. All right, thank you. I'm gonna stop sharing and put myself
Olga.
back.
Thank you so much. It was a very interesting talk. Let's thank the speaker. And do we have questions? We have 4 minutes for questions. So yes, there is Paul, one question.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the talk. It was very interesting. You were talking about the transition phase from consumer to producer. And I was thinking, could it be worthwhile to kind of test the visualization of a network as a multiplex network, where you have, you know, the layer of consumers and then the layer of producers, where there could be pathways between the two layers you can define.
That's a great point. And this is, again, going through the first stage, trying to put data together that took more time than we even actually expected. So now we're ready and open to all those great ideas. And given the fact that there's a lot of missing information, as I mentioned, just due to the fact how data is structured, and there's no actual connection between members yet, that will give us, that will enrich definitely our model to kind of understand how the transition, not just work from the same person, but also if you belong to the same, I don't know, discipline, whether your transition is the same just because you're in the same network.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there other questions for the speaker? If not, I would like